Right now, I want to go through the process of using your VA loan to buy a home from a family member. Now, I've done this with multiple borrowers in Colorado and Florida. We've done parents selling homes to kids. We've done brother and sister buying from each other. We're looking at family members specifically in this example. So again, my name is Drew Smith. My NMLS number is 211-3580. All of my information is in the description of this video. If you've got any questions while we're going through, pop them in the comments and I will answer them and address them individually. So first, in this example, we've got the seller that are the parents, and then we've got the buyer that is one of their kids. Now the buyer is VA entitled, so they either served or they're active duty, they've got their COE, we're entitled, we're good to go on the VA loan side. The first thing that we always want to do is get pre-approved. I always recommend that. Nothing else matters if we don't get approved. It's all a moot point, right? So we've got to get pre-approved first. We do that by filling out the application, submitting some income documents. I look at everything and then I issue the pre-approval. So let's say we're good to go on the pre-approval. Then before we get to the contract, we have to know some things. So we have to have a purchase price so the parents can decide that. Depending on the pre-approval amount, maybe you want to adjust that. You want to look at the market, see what houses are selling for. You can get on some websites and they might even tell you an estimate of what they think your house might be worth. So we've decided on a purchase price. And in this case, we're going to have to assume that the buyer does approve for that price. So we're good to go there. The next thing is filling out the contract. It's really easy to do. I've done them in Colorado and Florida. All we do is look at the specific state, and then we find that real estate purchase agreement or contract to go with that state that is approved by that state. We go ahead and get a copy of that and we fill it out together. You just go through it line by line, fill out the information. Sometimes we will need to track down some specific information, but it's easy to get on county websites. We get the contract all filled out. And this is the same process for any other purchase if you've got real estate agents involved as well. I guess that's important to note. So if I didn't make it clear, in this example, we're not using any real estate agents, just the buyer and the seller, mom and the kids, mom and dad and the kids, they're just doing this by themselves. They're not using any real estate agents. So we get the contract filled out. Then I will get that contract as the loan officer. And with that, I've got all of the information that I need. Now we've got the approval and I've got the contract, so I know what house we're looking at and what we're going to be doing. I can submit that to processing, and from this point, it goes down the journey of any other loan. So it's the same thing. We just, again, don't have any real estate agents because they're going to do that same thing, but the real estate agents would represent each one of these. They would represent the seller and the buyer, and real estate agents are great in that aspect because they advocate and they negotiate on your behalf. But if everybody agrees and there's no issues here, we can go ahead and just do it buyer to seller without utilizing any other people because it's going to be an easier, more simple transaction. So we've submitted to processing. We're going through our regular journey through underwriting and everything else. One thing that's going to come up that we always have to have is an appraisal. So remember, a lender or a bank, they are not going to give you more money than the house is worth. So whatever price that we have agreed upon, the house does have to appraise for that. Now, if the appraisal comes in lower, then we have one of two things that we can do. You can either reduce the price, and in that case, we just submit an amend to the purchase contract. It's just another form that you fill out. Everybody signs it, and you're agreeing to lower the price. Or the buyer has to come up with the money, the cash difference, to cover the appraised value. Right? So in that case, the appraisal comes in lower than the purchase price. The lender will give you whatever money the house appraised for. Anything above and beyond that, the buyer will have to come in, bring to the table. A cool thing that we can do here is seller concessions. Now we can do this on all loans, but I see this a lot when we're looking at parents giving or selling their homes to their kids. They really want to help them out. And a big part of that is giving them the money to cover the closing costs, which can add up. Typically, those come in at about 4-ish% of the purchase price, but it really just depends on specific circumstance. So let's say that the seller is going to give all those concessions to cover the closing costs so that our buyer can come to the closing table and buy the house with little to no money out of pocket, depending on the situation. Another thing that we can do here is we can go ahead and skip or waive the earnest money. Earnest money is on typical purchases where you are essentially giving promissory money to the seller. You're saying, hey, I'm serious about the house. Here's my earnest money to prove that I'm serious about buying the house. So we don't really need to do that. You know, mom and dad, parents probably trust the buyer, their kids, so they can go ahead and waive the earnest money. And then finally, you'll have to pick a title company. So the title company is going to be the place where all of this takes place. They also got work on the back end that they have to do for the property in question. A couple other things that could come up are any type of third-party fees or state-required things that need to be done with the house that the buyer and the seller will have to be in charge of, and that could be pest inspection, so termite inspection, things like that, depending on where you live. If it's a house that's on well water or septic, there are some requirements. We might have to get those tested. But other than that, it's a pretty smooth process. And then again, a lot of this stuff happens on every other deal, whether it's a family member or not. So there you go. That is how you can use your VA loan to buy a home from a family member. It is truly fairly simple, especially if everybody agrees on everything and you're willing to do the work to actually fill out the contract yourself. The other thing that you could do is if you know a real estate agent or a realtor, you could ask them to be what's called a transaction or a coordinator broker. And in this case, they are not working on one or the other side as far as representation, but they're in the middle and they are just helping you basically go down that journey and make sure that everything is on track. So that's it. If you got questions or comments, again, put them in the description or in the comments of this video. I will address them individually. Again, my name is Drew Smith. Like and follow for more mortgage tips.